Hello and welcome to my review of the public transportation in the city of Dubai. We'll be taking a look at most, if not all, of the different public transport services around the city, but first let's tackle the most difficult subject, which is going to be the payment system. So there are two main ways of paying for public transport in the city of Dubai. As you might have guessed, the first one's going to be paying with cash or card, which is very simple and is pretty straightforward. The second way of paying, not so straightforward. For public transport in Dubai, they have something called a Nol Card. In a sense, it's kind of like an Oyster card where you top up, put credit on it, and you can use it on most transportation services. However, where things get a bit strange is when you can add passes to them, for example daily passes and weekly passes. Before we get to that, however, let me explain to you the different types of Nol Cards. There are three main types of Nol Card. There's the red one, the silver one, and the gold one. When you buy these Nol Cards, initially you'll pay for the Nol Card and a little bit of balance on them. But the key thing to remember here is the type of Nol Card determines the fare you will pay after using them. For example, for the red Nol Card, you pay 4 dirhams to travel within one zone. Don't worry, I'll get to the zone system in a moment. There is a lot to cover here. Whereas on a silver Nol Card, it's 3 dirhams. Another thing to point out is that the silver and gold Nol Cards do not equate to the silver and gold classes within the public transport. Everything online I found out about this was very confusing and left us with no idea of what's going on. However, when you get there, it's simply just a standard class and a first class. They do not have anything to do with silver or gold Nol Cards. So, back to the daily passes then. The daily passes you can only get with the red Nol Card. The red Nol Card, as mentioned previously, has slightly higher fares than the silver one. And to be honest, the daily pass didn't have very good value. We spent quite a lot of the day during our time in Dubai travelling around using public transport, and we never really came to the limit of the daily pass with our ticket. So there was never really a need for it. If you're still thinking about getting a daily pass, I recommend you get it early in the morning before you start doing any trips, because it doesn't cover anything before it and it expires on midnight of the day you purchased it. It's only really useful if you're doing lots of little trips around Dubai and these trips are not within 30 minutes of each other. This is because it's not like the Oyster card where there's a daily cap to the amount you can spend. If you keep on using little trips that are not within 30 minutes of each other, you'll keep on racking up those expenditures. Now, the reason I specify within 30 minutes of each other is because of the transfer time they have on these Nol Cards. You can transfer from a different mode of transport to another within 30 minutes and only be charged for the one trip. However, it's very, very unlikely for you to be in this sort of situation where you need a daily pass. We never had this situation, so for us the better option was just to get a silver card and use it like an Oyster card. You cannot get a daily pass on a silver or gold Nol Card. Keep that in mind, just use it like an Oyster. It was so much easier when we did that. So, onto the zone system. The number of zones you pass through equals the fare pricing. It's not got to do with the number of stops or anything, it's simply the zone you pass through, which is decided on the area you're passing through. So that means you could be looking at a trip from A to B, which is within the same zone, but since the route it takes goes through another zone, it means you're paying extra for those zones. So do plan your routes carefully to ensure that you're not paying more than you actually need to. If there is a quicker way without leaving that zone, you should probably go for that. So do take the time to look at the Nol Card prices up on the screen right now. As I mentioned previously, we went for the silver Nol Card, and this particular one costs 25 dirhams initially, but you get a 19 dirham credit on it initially, so that means you're actually paying 6 dirham for the card itself. If you finish your time in Dubai and you still have a little bit of credit on your Nol Card, you can get a refund on it. Do hang on until the ferry section, stay tuned until then, I'll explain more about that then. Finally, a thing that's worth mentioning is that the three main modes of transport that don't take Nol Card are the ferry, or rather the ferry we took. I'm not sure if this is for all ferries. There's a 1 dirham Abra trip, which is cash only, and the monorail is completely separate from the whole Nol system. The only problem we had with the cash system is for the 1 dirham Abra trips. It's very hard to find a 1 dirham coin to give, so change was always hard to find. But I think now, hopefully, you've got a better understanding of how the payment system works in Dubai. I did need to get that across because it gets quite confusing if you're reading stuff online. Everything's contradicting each other and it just ends up being a mess. Hopefully, I've given enough of a clear explanation for you to understand. So then, let's actually move on to the transport. Let's start off with the metro. First things first, the metro. The metro system is split into 2 lines, the red line and the green line. I found that the red line was good for when you want to go to downtown Dubai, and the green line is good for exploring the creek. I only used the green line once, most of the time we were heading in downtown. Trains were generally very frequent, so not a lot of time spent standing around in the metro. It was pretty good. To use the metro, you simply scan in and out at the station barriers with your Nol card. And if you are having trouble, there are help desks at each station we were at. The staff are generally quite useful, however most of them only knew about the metro itself and not about other public transport systems. When we first arrived in Dubai, we felt a bit adventurous, so we used the metro to get from the airport to our hotel. From there it was about a 10-minute walk. It is possible, however it does depend on how much luggage we've got. We were happy to lug ours around, but the one thing we were not prepared for was the heat. I'm not even sure how to describe it. It's probably best if you watch the initial video in Dubai where you see my actual reaction for the heat. Anyway, that pretty much covers it for the metro. Let's move on to the Abra. So, probably the oldest form of transport in Dubai, the Abra. It was initially used by workers who worked around the creek to move large goods and building materials. Obviously, in modern times they've got more efficient ways of doing that, so now the Abras are used to get to and from and across the creek. Hopefully you can see from the map there are 2 main types of Abra trips. There's a short one going just across the creek, which is only 1 dirham, and there was a slightly longer one which went along the creek for a little bit, which was 2 dirhams. The 1 dirham you could pay with cash, and the 2 dirhams you could pay with Nol. I'm not holding on to it for the whole trip. One thing you do need to be careful of with the Abras is making sure you're getting on the right boat for the right station. On the way back one night we were told to take the 1 dirham Abra. However, what we didn't realise is that this was taking us to the nicknamed Banyas station rather than the real Banyas station, because both are on Banyas Road. So do be careful that you're getting on the right Abra. Okay, now let's move on to the bus. So before we talk about the bus, let's talk about the bus stops itself. They're always quite nice and air conditioned, so you need a place to cool down and you see a bus stop, that's probably your best bet. To use the bus, you just simply scan your Nol card in and out on the bus itself, and you can use the front and the back doors. There are scanners in both areas. And if you want to know things about timings and which bus to take, we found that Google Maps was generally pretty good at telling you what to do. Worst comes to worst, I found that there was at least 1 map in each bus station, so if you're really that lost that Google Maps isn't helping you much, you can always go back to good old maps. The tram was a fun one. This mode of transport mainly served the Palm Jumeirah and the Marina area, and I think it's there for the locality, as there were quite a few office blocks sort of surrounding us as we were on the tram. One thing I do want to warn you about, however, is that the doors will close on you. They will not wait for you. We experienced this firsthand when two of us managed to get on the tram and the doors closed on us, meaning that we got separated. If you want to know more about that, do watch my Marina video. Tell you what, these trams and metro, they accelerate really quickly to throw you off your feet. And one big lesson we learnt from this is that you do not scan out if you got off on the wrong stop. My dad and my brother did this. They got off at the wrong stop, scanned out, and then scanned back in when they got back on the tram. But strangely, this didn't count as a transfer, despite the time between scanning out and scanning in being much less than 30 minutes. Here we are, the ferry. We ourselves only used the ferry once, and we took a long route which was called the FR1, FR2. This was a route from Marina Mall to Al Ghabeba with a stop at the canal, and this cost us 50 dirham per person. We ended up paying at the counter by the ferry, and we found out that the ferry wasn't actually included with the Nol card, even though online it was saying you could pay online with the Nol card. And we were planning on doing this because it kept on showing up online as low availability for the ferry. However, this turned out to be absolute nonsense, because when we got on the ferry it was virtually empty. Seems like we are setting off now. Say goodbye to Marina Mall. Didn't spend very long in there.
Walk through.
Basically just walked straight through to get to here, the transport station. Now off to Al Ghabeba.
It looks like we've got most of the boat to ourselves.
Well, although it said low availability, it looks almost virtually empty. There's a couple of guys behind us who won't film privacy, but that's about it. It's like almost completely empty. So what it meant by low availability, I have no idea.
Maybe people get on at the other stops.
I think there's only one other stop.
You sure?
I'm fairly certain now, if I remember looking at the map correctly.
Yeah.
Since we thought that we could pay with our Nol card for the ferry, we had actually overtopped up on our Nol cards, meaning that we end up getting refunds on our Nol cards at the end of our time in Dubai. The refunds they give you are in cash, but you do incur a small charge. However, what you can do is transfer the credits from one Nol card to another for free, and this will minimize costs. My dad moved all of the credit from the 3 Nol cards onto one, and then only got charged once to get a refund on that one Nol card. It was quite funny when the staff member asked us how did we know about this. We didn't actually want to mention that we just figured it out and just said a staff member told us. He didn't seem to mind, instead seemed quite impressed actually. So if you want to impress the locals, that's how. Also, the Nol card that you took the money out of stays alive. The other 3 essentially become dead and you can't use them. That other Nol card stays active for 5 years, however. Now you may be wondering why that's useful, but as mentioned previously, you are actually paying 6 dirhams for the card itself, because you pay 25 dirhams for the card and you get 19 dirham credit. So if you are planning on visiting Dubai within 5 years of going there previously, it's probably worth hanging on to that Nol card rather than throwing it in the bin. Anyway, more about the ferry journey itself. As I said already, we took a very long ferry trip from Marina Mall to Al Ghabeba, which is by the creek, and we did this for the very nice coast views as you go up along the coast.
Yeah, so we should see the sunset behind us once it's on our turn. That'll be really, really fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's nearly gone. Maybe you can do time after that. Maybe, I'll tell you what, maybe we'll not have a big picture.
I can't hear you.
Maybe I'll have a big picture every now.
However, we had had too much sun previously throughout the day, so we were pretty much knocked out from heat exhaustion. My dad was somehow still standing, but the heat all got to us in the end because towards the night we end up with slightly dodgy stomachs. If you want to know more about that whole day and that whole journey, do watch the full marina video. Let's move on to the final transportation we used, and that was the monorail. Now the monorail is only really used to go up and down the Palm Jumeirah, and the monorail is not included under the Nol system. You cannot pay with your Nol card. What we did instead is got a 99 dirham family for 4 pass, which takes you all the way up the Palm and all the way back down. Do be careful when you're going to buy the ticket. There will be travel agents around who will try to sell you it. Try to go to the ticket office yourself, because it becomes quite confusing with who's actually staff and who's a travel agent. Since very few people seem to know about the family pass, the travel agents eventually just said, okay, just go to the ticket office. You can pay extra to be able to get off the monorail halfway through. I didn't really know what was there, and we just planned to go towards Atlantis, so we didn't bother getting that. However, I did find out afterwards that there is a mall at this other monorail stop. But after doing Dubai Mall, Mall of the Emirates, malls get very boring. How much more can you do? So overall, the monorail, in my opinion, wasn't very good value for money. I think that if you're staying in Atlantis Palm, you should probably do it once, maybe for the view, but then afterwards maybe just try and stick to a taxi or an Uber, maybe even hire a car. You'll probably find it's more economical that way. Unfortunately, we didn't end up using the water taxi or taxi slash Uber. You will find that when you are walking around in the streets of Dubai, taxis do pull over asking if you want to get a ride. However, generally when we were walking, we'd either plan the walk or it was just a very short one. But anyway, I hope you found this useful. Please do comment down below if you need any more info. I'm happy to help you. And if you want me to make a video about something more specific or just about something else in general, I'll try and make it in due course. Anyway, hopefully that clears up public transport in Dubai, and I'll catch you guys later.